There was only ever one time I witnessed Aidan Mitchell not behaving like a complete delinquent. And it was only momentary. If he bothered to show up to class, he'd often be the very last one, but he was certainly the very first one out the door when the bell rang. But on this occasion, he held back. I was bracing myself for a bit of trouble and politely tried to usher him out the door, but he started asking me about coding. Coding? He was such an obnoxious little shit. I thought he wanted to know how to create a virus. Very sheepishly, he pulled this very tatty notebook out of his bag. He opened it up, and it was just packed full of drawings and designs for a video game that he wanted to make. He went into great detail, explaining it all to me as I looked through the book. The drawings were incredibly childish. The idea itself was, on the one hand, insanely generic, but also made virtually no sense. But what really stood out was just how disturbingly misogynistic and horrendously offensive it all was. But putting all that to one side, I was just absolutely amazed by how much thought and work he'd put into it, and how enthusiastic he was about it too. He was almost oozing with ambition. If only he'd been so enthusiastic in class. I know I was his computer science teacher, but I wasn't sure why he'd opened up and confided his idea in me. Then he started asking me about studying coding and game design at university. His grades in my class were appalling, so I had no reason to assume they'd be any different in any other class. Just the very thought of someone as imbecilic and uncouth as Aidan Mitchell attending university, someone with zero aptitude to succeed in such an environment, it made me burst out laughing. It was entirely involuntary. I tried to compose myself, but no one likes to be laughed at, especially belligerent bullies like Aidan Mitchell. I barely mustered some genuine words of encouragement, and I tried to wipe the smirk off my face, but he was already shoving the notebook back into his bag and slammed past me on the way out, calling me a bitch, telling me he'd fuck me up if ever he saw me on the streets, before knocking a monitor onto the floor as he went out the door. The following day, the whole computer lab was infected with a virus. The little bastard. I don't think it was too long after that his name was being thrown around in relation to the death of another pupil. My ex-husband once asked me if I thought things between him and that girl would have turned out differently if, instead of laughing in his face, I had actually encouraged him to pursue his idea. He was such an arsehole. But no, I don't. I'm sure I could have found him some resources that he could have used to build up some of the skills that he wanted, but there are plenty of genuinely good kids actually eager to learn and deserving of such attention and time that don't get it. And he hadn't seen the inside of that notebook. Depriving the world of whatever the hell was going on inside that boy's head is probably the best thing I have ever done